you can see I've got my margin area. Very wide margin on the left, narrow on the right. I've also got a top and bottom margin. And inside of there, it's divided up into 7. You can draw other guides to work within, and I'll explain those later. On this page, move it over. I got a very wide top margin, and inside here I've got 3 columns, but I've got one of the columns is very large and the other are much more narrow. And when I place things on here, everything has a specific reason for being placed. Again, one of the reasons why you want to use a grid structure is so that when you make something and have to change it up, in this case we'll make one for studio art, and then we'll jump down and make the same thing for interior design. All the things will look exactly the same. They'll look similar. All I'm going to have to do is to change up the photographs that go into it. Cool? Okay, so let's get started on using this one. I'll kind of step through. As with the other ones, I'm going to show you how you set up your page, and I'll leave the design up to you. When we make our new document, we're going to turn off facing pages. I'll keep it at 1 for now. It will be letter size. Don't worry about the columns or the margins. This was what we'll change. But we will give it 1/8 of an inch bleed on all sides. And I'll say OK. The next thing we need to do is to create what's called a master page. I've opened up my pages palette. This will show me whatever I have. The master pages are usually up here at the top. What do y'all remember about master pages? What do they allow you to do?
You make templates so that you can
Template.
plug things.
Exactly. Yeah. A master page, it works as a template page. So anything that's on the, in this case, A master, you see the little A down here. If I made a copy of it, it'll copy whatever's on that A master. Right now there's nothing there. To edit it, simply double click on A master. You can see it's highlighted. I'm actually in editing mode. I'm not on page 1. Here's what I mean by how it looks. If I drew just a bunch of lines on this page, and then I double click back on page 1, those lines are now on page 1. If I made new pages, page 2, page 3, all of these look exactly the same. So the advantage of using a master page is that if I set up something, I should be able to reuse it. Let's do the same thing now for our grid structure. Let's get rid of that. So when I'm in a master page, let's change up the margins. Layout, margins and columns. And for mine, the first one will have a top of 1 inch, bottom of 1/2 an inch, left and right of 2, and 2/5. So now you can see my margins are set up. Number of columns, we'll set it to 7. And the gutter, 0.1, oops, not 1.8, 0.18, 0.1875. Say OK. Got my 7-column grid inside of here. The other thing is you can add any kind of guides that you want to. In our case, we want to have a horizontal guide running across the top, right at 1/2 an inch, and a vertical guide running at 1 and, what did I say, 1 1/4 inch right there. When I click on page 1, now page 1 is structured just like this, just the way I need it to be. And any other pages that use the master page of A will also have that structure. You don't have to have just one master page. In our case, we're going to have a second one that's going to be rotated sideways. To make a new one, click at the very top of your pages, choose New Master. Usually by default it labels them A, B, C, D, and Master. You can give it whatever name that you want. I'm just going to keep it as B Master. The only thing I'm going to change is my orientation. I want this to be landscape. When I say OK, now I've got a B Master. It's over here. B Master sounds like an awesome rapper name. All right, so let's change this one up. I've got it on landscape mode, got it on vertical. Type in our margins. For the second one, 1.75. Bottom of 1/2 an inch, left of 1/2 an inch, and right. That'll all remain the same. This will be 3 columns. And again, the gutter for these columns is going to be 0.1875. We'll say OK. For this one, however, By default, it divides my columns up evenly within my margins. I want to be able to move these around. You can move the position of your gutters by going to View, down to Grids and Guides, and unlocking Lock Column Grids, or Lock Column Guides. Once it's unchecked, I can click on here and actually drag it to wherever position that I want. This is how I was able to establish that larger area and smaller area on different sizes. The main thing when positioning these is make sure your mouse is either on the right or the left hand side. So if you're looking on number 7 on your instructions, I say use the selection tool to drag the right side of the columns to these certain positions. So column 1, I'm clicking on this right side and I'm looking up here at 6.5. So I'm going to drag this one to right there. Does that make sense? Same way for this one at 8.25. Right side at 8.25. If I clicked over here, it would be off by 3/8 or 3/16 of an inch on this one. This is the way I want it to be set up. Next thing, let's see. We're going to create a grid of equally spaced picture frames. A lot of people forget that you can do this in InDesign. Grab my photo frame. What I want to do is to have this equally spaced columns that I can put pictures in later. To do this, grab your picture frame, click and drag, then use your arrow keys. Up and right will add or will divide up that particular area. And as long as you're holding down your mouse, you can do that. You can add as many rows and columns as necessary. How many of y'all forgot that from the intro class? Okay, there you go. So I need 3 of them. Click and drag, and when I let go, now they're automatically set. This works for any kind of shape tool that you have. If you want multiple text boxes, click and drag, and you can create rows and columns of text boxes. Actually, they're already automatically linked to each other, so you may have to worry with that. And it also works for different shapes as well. Let's get actually, let's see if I have the shapes tool. If I got the ellipse, yeah, I can create rows and columns of circles very quickly and very easily. I wish that worked that way in Illustrator. It doesn't. InDesign gives you that capability. Okay, so I've got all these picture boxes. I've got my B-Master set up. Need to create a horizontal guide, 1.5 from the top. Everything else looks good. We'll double click on page 1, go back into normal editing mode. That's another thing to remember. Make sure you're working in the correct page. You're not in a master page, but you're on page 1 once you start working. As far as the design goes, I have very specific places I want certain things to be. The fonts, colors, and styling I'll leave up to you. If you look at the information that I'm giving you, this info is on 2 different pages. The first page is the same information we've been using before, so about the department and the degrees. The second page, scroll down, gives you the information about studio art, the info about interior and art education. Does that make sense? So when I refer to it, on the first page of your document, all of this needs to be on your first page. Cool? So none of it's on the back page. I want Mississippi College Department of Art to be in this leftmost column. So this area right here. I want there to be a little bit of a break right here. So if I was to type it out, grab a text box, Mississippi College, we'll scale it down. And of course we can make it bigger or smaller as necessary. Obviously this is a very vertical spacing, so if you tried to do something like this, it's going to go very wrong very quickly. What should I be doing? Should rotate it. Easiest thing to do. It's rotated, now I can easily fit things inside of here. I'm going to go quickly as far as the way it looks. Some things to think about are different fonts you can use. You can add color in the background. I like to work in grayscale first. Uh-oh. Okay. Tints, shades. Send it to the back. If it looks good in black and white, it'll definitely look good in color. So hey, there's that there. I'm even giving you some space at the top. I don't define what has to go there, but it's just an area. If you wanted to, you could decorate it. You could give it an extra space to work from. Everything else needs to fit within these 7 columns. The next thing to consider is you don't have to fit everything the width of a column. Let's say I put this first paragraph into here. Copy it over. If I made my text boxes that size and I pasted my info into it, it's going to be very hard, very quick. Instead, I'm using the width of it to give me options for how wide it can be. That is readable. This is a little bit better readable. 4 columns, 5 columns. Everything else would work out. I have other columns to place other information into it. So let's say I wanted this to be my introductory paragraph. I want it to stand out. Maybe that'll go over 4 columns. This leaves me these 3 over here. And I can do my graduate and undergraduate information. Paste it in. We'll make that bold, maybe a little bigger. Y'all learn your keyboard shortcuts. What's the keyboard shortcut for increasing a font size? Nope. Nope. Nope.
Something with bracket? Is it just the bracket?
It's not the bracket at all. It's Shift Command greater than and less than.
What's the bracket do?
As far as I know, nothing in Illustrator. If you're in Photoshop, it changes your brush size.
I think it does in Illustrator too.
In Illustrator, it does that too, but not in InDesign.
Oh,
Let's see. Maybe I can, change up lighting. Again, all of this is just whatever you want to do for your design. I think I even had a drop cap. No, it's my baseline shift. Oh, they always had that drop cap. There it is. You get the point. I've got 7 columns that I can play around with to change up the size and look and feel of all my information. I could just as easily make this into 3 columns and then make all of this information be 4 columns wide. I could make this be, I don't know, let's see if I can get away with 2 columns. A little bit too narrow. What I can do with the rest of them is place my photos into here. Here's where the other information comes in. Remember, we're making a layout for 3 different programs. So the art education program, I want you to only use the photos that are provided in here, and I'm giving you more than enough. So if I was to create a little layout for these, we'll make these black. I could place something there, one big picture there, and maybe another one that goes over here. I could have 2 small ones be up here. I have a small one and a long thin one down here. Does this make sense? I'm using my grid, using my columns, my structure, just to place things. You can see how fast I go because it takes all the guesswork out of where I should place things and how things should look. There's a viable solution. That one works out really well. All cool? This is the way I had mine for this one. I also included the logo, contact information. Don't forget to add all the appropriate stuff in there. But from here, since this one is for art education, I would use the photos for art ed in this one. For the second page, I want to add the B master. We'll drag it down below. Now you can see I've got 2 different pages. Page 2 uses this master page. Page 1 uses this one. And as long as you drag them into here, you can swap back and forth between A and B, and use those. If I was placing things in in B, at the very top, I want it to say Department of Art and then whatever program that you have. So in this case, Department of Art, Interior Design. And then you'll place a picture of the instructor, you'll have the information from here. This is what you'll find on the second page of your info. Clear on that? Cool? Okay. Final thing, problem that you're going to run into. Whenever you use a master page, everything will be locked down. I can't click or add or do anything with these frames that I've created. I need to unlock them. Here's how to unlock it. If you'll hold Command and Shift, whenever you click on something, that will unlock and allow you to use whatever you had from your master page. Once they're unlocked, actually I know I need to auto-fit the content, then I can take my info, choose however many pictures I need, and flow them into my design. Come on. Did not take. There we go. And actually click and place, recrop, and reframe. Very, very quickly. Did you do one of those, Matt? Which one did you do?
I did the top middle one.
The top one? This one right here?
It was a long time
Okay. Once they're on here, yeah, you may want to reframe some of these so that it actually showcases the art itself. Pretty cool. Same way for the instructor. By the way, if y'all don't know the instructors, you can find them from the other grid information exercises. So here's faculty. We have Mr. Smathers for studio art, Miss Bertamy, redhead, and Miss Busby. There's Miss Busby for art education. Any questions on this so far? Cool. That's the basics of it. As soon as you can lay it out, I'll let you deal with formatting. Add color to it. Obviously mine didn't have color, but you can pick and choose from the pictures that you're adding to there to be able to add something to it. Final thing I want to show you before I let you go is in working with the layout for your project. The project you can choose between using a modified column or a modular grid. The truth is you can get away with using both of them, and oftentimes you can do some really cool layouts that use both. I've started on mine. I chose Peter Souza, who does the White House photography. If you look in my A master, I'm going to get rid of B master for now. If you look in the A master, you can see how I've structured this particular grid. So is this a modified column or is this a modular grid? Modified? Okay, yeah, it's definitely a modified. I've got two columns off to the side here. It's got a little bit of a regular modular grid in that I've got rows and columns going across it as well. But when I place information into here, you can see how I've placed the text into this area. And I'm using that for the second page. And so if I have to build it out, I've placed this picture behind there. I can do things like, let's add a text box and flow my text from one page to the other page. Got that. We'll select this one. Come on. Okay. Text flows into there. Oh, I know. I've already pre-formatted my text. Ha ha ha. From last class. I'll reformat it back to the way God intended. Oh, come on. Paragraph. White. Black. Then. So I've got my text inside of here. Since we're using a lot of the photographs, I can place photos within my grid structure. So there's a photo there. Make a copy of it. We'll put a picture right there. Let's see. Since I'm overlapping, maybe I can put some text on this side. Let's put some pictures into there. Choose two at random. Make sure you click inside the box. So I've got two of those. Looking good. As far as cropping and placement, so I could get away with a little bit larger. This one definitely needs to be smaller. Make him larger. I'm wanting to get a sense of story. This is telling the first 100 days. As far as colors go, I went ahead and pre-made a color set of swatches so I can use those swatches throughout my entire design. Let's send it to the back. Maybe not. I think the orange that I used. That looks a lot better. That fits well. There's that page. Format your text. Give it a drop. Yeah. Change the color of it. This is where I turned it white, or whatever other color that you want it to be. Let's make it white. Maybe the initial cap will be a different color. Not the outline. There we go. Larger font, more leading, different colors, whatever else that you want. That's okay. The main thing is, I've got a grid structure that I worked with. It took me just a few seconds to set it up, and then I go back through and I reformat everything. It took a lot of the guesswork about how large do I need to make this picture? Use your grid. Where do I need to place my text? Use your grid. Everything fits well within it. Once it's all defined, I could define this as a paragraph style and just apply it to everything else. Even within my first page that I have here, this falls within my grid, and I reformatted the text to be more appropriate with it. If I wanted to, I could make a new B-master grand. Change up the grid structure for this one. I'm just going to do this one on the fly. Making up stuff. Here's the other thing, another issue that comes up. Whenever you make a B-master, if you have one page selected, notice that it's grayed out. Change the columns and margins. What's happening? Only that one page is selected. Make sure you have both of them selected in order to affect both of them. Now that they're both selected, when I change it, they change up as well. Inside, outside, move things around, do different placements. Not saying this is going to be good. We'll keep it 2 columns. Same way for when you draw off guides. If I click and drag down, see how this guide is staying inside of my page? If I drag it over here, it stays inside of this page. If I want a guide to go all the way across both pages, I actually need to draw it off on the outside of my text. Now it goes across both of them without having to make 2 different guides. Not so much for vertical since it doesn't create those. But I can use these as my own guides for my page. Let's go over. I could set up a grid structure, create grid lines. This is what we did last time. Increase the number of rows, columns. So now I've got a new grid structure that I could use for a B-master. If I wanted to use it, grab that master page, drag it in. So this page will have a different construct, different look and feel. And from here I can place my text on the inside or change up where I place my picture boxes. Maybe I put 2 pictures here. If you're a working professional and you do a lot of page layouts for people, especially if you do books and magazines, what a lot of them will do is they'll create, pre-make a lot of master pages. They'll use these guidelines and set them up for things that they know that really work. They'll study other magazines and try to find the grid structure for those types of layouts. And they'll have them pre-made. And so when somebody asks them to do a layout, they just use their master pages and these grids to lay out the information that they have. All cool? Last thing I'll show you, kind of on that note, I'll